Software Engineering Radio episode 74, The Real Enterprise Architecture. Hello folks, welcome to Software Engineering Radio. This is Markus, although the episode will be done by Alex and Wolfgang Keller. I just wanted to make two short announcements before we get to the meat of the matter. One is I wanted to remind you that our experiment is still running. The experiment being that we've decided to see whether the donations we could get from you, the audience, the level of donations we could get is high enough so we don't need any sponsoring and still can cover our cost for website, audio equipment, press releases, and all the other stuff we need. So in the last couple of weeks since we've announced this idea on the survey results episode, we have received quite a bit of donations. It's not yet at the level we want to be. And I also promised that I'll be completely open about how much we've got. And I'll let you know once the experimental period is over, basically meaning at the end of the year. So please, if you haven't donated yet, please consider donating. You will really help us cover our cost. The second thing I wanted to mention is that we wanted to try to make SE Radio a bit more interactive. Specifically, we want to include more audience participation in the widest sense. We've decided to do two things. One is we'll do a listener feedback episode, not in the sense we've had before that I read comments that you've sent us. No, what we want to do is that we pre-announce the time when we'll actually do the episode, and you'll be able to call into the recording via Skype and ask us questions or give us comments or discuss certain topics. We don't yet know when this is going to happen. We have to find the time, and we'll probably do this in the evening European time, so the Europeans can call in the evening, and the US folks can call in during their morning. And it's probably sometime in the night in Asia, but we can't accommodate everybody, of course. And the idea is just to discuss things and have you participate a bit more than what we've done in the past. We'll let you know details as soon as we know when exactly this is going to happen. The other thing with regards to interactivity is that on January 26th, I think, we have the second anniversary of SE Radio coming up, and we want to celebrate that a little bit. And the way we want to celebrate that is that we'll do a special episode in which we'll just play comments, basically congratulations, feedback, and other stuff that you send us. So if you would like to participate, just record the SE Radio birthday message, 1 minute or 1 minute and 20 or whatever, MP3 file, 256 kilobit encoding, and send it over at team@se-radio.net, and we'll consider it for playing it on the birthday show. Okay, so much for the announcements. Let's now get to this episode's content. It's a discussion about enterprise architecture with Wolfgang Keller, hosted by Alex. You will remember that we've already had an episode about enterprise architecture, or at least about what we called enterprise architecture, and it was about the technical aspects of enterprise architecture. And we got feedback from several people that enterprise architecture is actually something different. And it's more about a managerial task of managing all the architectural assets and applications and systems in a large enterprise. So this time we really deliver on the title and discuss this more managerial, organizational, not so much technical aspect of enterprise architecture.
I'm here together with Wolfgang Keller, who is not only very experienced in the field and has many years of experience with enterprise architecture, but also has written a book on the topic, which is called IT Unternehmensarchitektur. The name is also the hint that it's just in German right now. So unfortunately for you English guys, it's not available in English as far as I know yet. So maybe Wolfgang, could you introduce yourself a bit?
Yes, okay. As you already mentioned, my name is Wolfgang Keller. If somebody should hear something which sounds a little bit strange, I'm very sorry. I got a little cold, so we tried anyway. Yeah, what did I do? I studied computer science and business administration in Munich, a technical university. Everybody knows Munich, or many people seem to know Munich. It's famous for beer, Oktoberfest. It's not so famous for computer science, but I can tell you, yeah, we've got a reasonable faculty over there. After my studies, I had to learn, yeah, to do something in practice. In my case, it was kind of big project business at a company which is called Software Design and Management, which is this German company, and they are specializing in providing very big software systems for how are these guys called? Fortune 500 clients and blue chip clients in Germany. I stayed with them for about 7 years, was very interesting, and I liked them a lot. After that, I got the chance to take responsibility for an international life insurance platform for a company called Generali Vienna Group. Generali is one of the world's biggest insurance companies, and as you also know, insurance and finance companies have a very large software portfolio usually, because everything they do is information and software, and they do not manufacture any tangible things. So it's all about software and information there. I was there for about 8 years, and I did a few things like managing the technical side of the largest Smalltalk project in Europe at the times. Later, I was in charge of enterprise architecture. This is what we're going to talk about today. And I also did things like a euro conversion. Euro conversion is very interesting because you have to keep track of converting all the applications of a company that makes a turnover of roughly, let's say, 4 or 5 billion euros, which is not nothing. And if this goes wrong, yeah, you've got a pretty problem. So, yes, I'm kind of like in the business of taming the big iron in computer science. Okay, now it's you, Alex.
Okay, you already gave some hints. If someone knows what's enterprise architecture, nevertheless, I guess we have to give a short explanation what enterprise architecture means, because there's a lot of confusion out there, as far as I know.
Yes, it is, and I'm sure you want an elevator talk.
Yeah.
Enterprise architecture is about managing the portfolio of applications of large-scale companies who need to perform their business with these applications. If you are a normal software architect, you usually deal with maybe a very big application like the thing I mentioned, the Smalltalk platform or project had roughly something like 15,000 function points, which is a mega project. But if you compare it to the whole landscape of such a company, then this is only not even 10% of all the software they have. So if you're a normal software architect, you deal with one of those projects. But if you are an enterprise architect, you need to keep track of, let's say, 200 or more of those applications.
Yeah.
If you look at a large company like BMW, which is very famous all around the world, in America for their nice cars, yeah, and these guys have about 4,000 applications, and they use an IT budget of roughly a bit more than €1 billion per year, yeah, and this is really quite something.
Yeah.
And the enterprise architecture division at that place takes care that the company gets some money or some value for the money. Sorry. Yes. This was the elevator talk. I have a whole lecture on this, which takes 15 times 90 minutes, and after that, students still thought that they could kind of like hear more and more and more. But yeah, it's quite an amazing field. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Nevertheless, I often heard people coming to talks from me when I talked about enterprise architecture, and they were surprised not to hear anything about software patterns and HAB or whatever. So it's more about managing a portfolio, a complete IT, whatever, and not so much about the software architecture of a single system. You have to touch this as well, but from a different point of view. So what exactly would you say is the difference between software architecture and application architecture? I guess we already mentioned a lot of this.
You almost said it, yeah. Software architecture deals with the architecture of a single system, and maybe also with the architecture of a family of systems, For example, in software architectures, as you mentioned already, you have such terms as patterns, you have layers, you have architectural views, you have different views upon a software artifact, like, let's say, a process architecture, deployment architecture, this and that architecture. But in order to make decisions about a portfolio, this is all not very necessary, Because, for example, what interests you if you deal with a portfolio is what are the retirement candidates, what are the systems you need to invest in, what are the gaps in your portfolio where your business needs some more software and all the like. Enterprise architecture is a bit of an emerging discipline. If you look at what the researchers did, then you could see in the mid of the 19th, I also dealt a lot with software architecture, and at that time they did a lot at Carnegie Mellon University, and they started to research description languages for architecture and formal description techniques and all this kind of stuff. And what came out was that all those theories about viewpoints and views and architectural views and patterns, patterns was not them. But anyway, that kind of research started about, let's say, 12, 15 years ago, and it's got a kind of maturity right now. If you look at enterprise architecture, it started only 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it's still an evolving field, and that makes it kind of interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Last time I tried to explain a friend what enterprise architecture is. He first didn't really understand what I mean, and after that he said, you mean IT governance? Is it IT governance? So is it IT governance? Is there a difference? What is IT governance, because it's closely related?
I would say enterprise architecture is a part of IT governance. If you have any asset in a company, like, let's say, real estate or your product portfolio or whatever, it needs some kind of governance. If you look at the at a dictionary, then it says that governance is a process of governing a country. If I have to translate it into German, it's Regierung. In English, it's governance. So this is kind of like a very basic term, or a very basic thing. So if you have any resource, like your IT, which is a major resource in most companies, because they burn something like 5% of the costs, or more, sometimes more, sometimes less. Then this needs governance. So, and your IT usually is more than only your application portfolio. Your IT is about managing the IT. Your IT is about changing processes. Your IT is about managing your assets, what you have. And all of this is governance. And some people would also say that governance, or IT governance, deals with who decides what in IT of a company. And this is not exactly what enterprise architecture is. Kind of like enterprise architecture is one instrument of IT governance. But it's not the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive deeper into the topic. What is enterprise? How do you do enterprise architecture? What does it consist of? What are the single things to do?
Good question. First of all, I would say you could look what else happens in the CIO office. Kind of like if you say enterprise architecture has to deal with governing your application portfolio or your IT function, and you can see what else happens in the CIO office. The next thing you find there is IT strategy. IT strategy is kind of like the IT part of the company strategy, and also project portfolio management. And then you find enterprise architecture. Sometimes it's the same guy who does all of this as the head of a CIO office or something, yeah, a post like that. So what does the enterprise architect do? First of all, he should be involved in IT strategy, yeah, because as an enterprise architect, you really have to know your business, because if you do not know what drives your business, what are the value creation mechanisms and so on, you cannot make really much useful decisions about how to govern your portfolio or how to steer it. Yeah, that's the first thing. So you need to understand your business, you need to understand the business strategy, and you need to come up with ideas how to transform this into an IT strategy, or you can do it even vice versa, in a way that you say, okay, here we've got a very smart idea that could even move or shake our business strategy, because maybe you put IT in a new product or in a new process, and then this could even mean that IT transforms your business model. The next thing you have to do is application portfolio management. It's kind of like the next big thing, because you're sitting on those 200 or 1,000 or 4,000 applications. Yeah, each has a few hundred or a few thousand function points, which is the dimension normal project deals with, and you need to decide what's going to happen to these guys. Yeah, are they going to be retired? Will you invest? Will you keep them stable? Everything. Yeah, so kind of like you have to look at that portfolio and come up with decisions what to do with it. Yeah, how to evolve it in the future. And this is a job you're never done with. Yeah, kind of like it's not like a project you started, you ended, you're done, you're ready. Application portfolio management is a permanent process. You know? And if you have done all those strategic things, then you need to get your power on the road. So you need some kind of transmission mechanism. So you have one, for example, which is all kind of models and tools, and putting all your strategies and models into some tools that makes them visually available to all the IT stuff. That's called modeling. And then you have to formulate guidelines for your IT department. And then you have to make sure that the guidelines are really transformed into what happens in the company. And this is what people would call architecture governance, or you can also call it tracking the project portfolio and tracking the project, so that people don't turn it back on you and do what they want to do. Yeah, so the strategy is very nice, but if people do not act on it, it's you can as well have a piece of paper and forget it.
I know what you mean. Okay. Is business process modeling also part of it? I mean, as it's enterprise architecture bridges between business and IT, who's responsible for business process modeling? IT, business?
It depends. Yeah, it depends. First of all, it depends a bit on the company and the history, who's doing business process models. The ideal state would be that IT and business do it together. For example, if they have some very advanced projects, they would sit down and chart the business processes and then implement them together. This is kind of like the highest and best form. Whenever you have a division of labor here, and whenever the division is too high or too deep border or something, this is not very good for the effectiveness of the whole thing. Yeah? So as you kind of said, business processes have to be in sync with all the other models and with the application portfolio, because you need the applications that support the business processes. Yes, it's not always so that the same people would do it, but they have to collaborate very closely together.
Okay. As I said, the ideal case and ideal, at least in my life, means I've never seen it, is the IT and the business are closely working together, having the same goals, sitting in the same board meetings, and try to get the best out of the things they have. I always seen IT quite separated from business in my past, unfortunately. So what do you do to get business alignment? How do you get business into the discussion and get it working?
Yeah, okay. This is indeed one of the tougher questions. Yes. You have, you see me thinking, or you hear me thinking. Okay, you have several levels of alignment here. Yeah, you could first, let's say, ask the business what they are after and what they want. Yeah, and often they will not be able to answer you. This is kind of like the worst level, because it means you do not work together. You kind of like you wait for them to tell you what they want, and this never really works.
But not so unusual, actually, at least in the huge corporations I know.
Yeah, this is kind of like the 80% case. But some people would say, yeah, okay, why is that so bad? Yeah, it can work, but it's like you have a company or a state or anything where, kind of like everything works as ordered. So this can work and work and work, can be pretty boring and can be enough. But in a very competitive world, this is simply not, hot enough or fast enough or challenging enough or whatever. So the next step would be what I told when doing an IT strategy would be, okay, you sit together with the business guys and you think about how would you want to support their strategy and not their detailed requirements, but what would you do to support their strategy and their business strategy and their value creation model?
That's great.
This is already better, and not all companies really execute it. So if you're at that level, you're already better, I would say. And then the better levels are when, as I said before, also with business processes, when the border between business and IT disappears, and you have mixed teams who would work on new value creation models that leverage IT and new business ideas, and who have the capabilities to implement this in very short time. So in this case, you would not have alignment or something. You would just work closely together, and you're working on the same thing, and you need not kind of like adjust yourself to somebody who's running in front of you, but you're running together in front. This is kind of like the best level you can achieve. But not many have it.
I think really that's great advice to get out of the simple execution mode and show that you can help implementing the business strategy. I mean, after all, they just want to make a good job. So most of the time, in my experience, they don't see that IT really helps them. They see it only as a cost factor. And if you're just in execution mode and do what they want or order, it's understandable that they are in this mode. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's a bit like marketing, if you only do what the customer wants or asks for, then you're in the commodity sector. It's like a discounter. In Germany, we have Aldi and all those discounters for food stuff who are very cheap. And they have a cutthroat competition. They have absolute commodities, and it's not much fun working for them. And it's also not much fun delivering any goods for them because they are so pressed for prices. It's really awful. And then if you look, for example, at marketing theory and say, how do I get out of this price trap? Then you will find, okay, you need to offer your customer some added value or some things that he thinks are cool or any additional value, and then he will start to talk and think not only about the price, but he will think about the value of the good. Yeah, it's kind of like the luxury shops, for example. Yeah? So you need to come into this sector out of the commodity business. Yeah. So, okay.
There are loads of, maybe that's too much, but there are some standard models I know in the area, and you also touched a few in your book. Could you give us some idea what's going on there? What are they for? Are they good or whatever?
Okay, I mean, you could find models for IT governance and similar things, or for IT operations, like, let's say, ITIL or TOGAF or all this kind of stuff. They are older than, let's say, actual enterprise architecture management, and they would in general not be sufficient to cover the whole field. What I did for my book is I observed what people do, and I basically observed that they do strategy, that they do application portfolio modeling, that they do modeling and blueprints, that they do tracking of project portfolios and projects, and that's about it. And if you look at different industries such as automotive or banking or insurance or even transportation, you will find that most of the practicing enterprise architects are doing exactly those things, and it was very kind of like a bit astonishing or very interesting to see when we did a course or a lecture there in Potsdam, and we had 4 practicing architects over there from those 4 different industries, but they had all a very similar set of models, and they were all doing very similar things. So you can say kind of like the art is developing into one direction, but actual models like ITIL or TOGAF or COBIT or so do not really cover it. But it doesn't matter. The practitioners know what to do.
Yes, same here. I never really used any of the standard models. Always used homegrown stuff, if you like it. But a bit different view here, at least from my point of view, on the blueprint stuff. Do you think there are any standards out there that should be followed or are already usable?
The point here is give me a problem and I can propose a solution. So there's no such thing as a universal blueprint for the universal IT application. Just, let's say you have blueprints for software families such as tank operation simulators. So this has got nothing to do with, let's say, a Web 2.0 something application. So what people would often see as a universal blueprint would be such a blueprint for a big web application where you have a portal server, an integration capability, and some security appliances and a database and a firewall and whatever. So you can find these blueprints. They are one kind of blueprints, but usually for each family of problems there is a family or kind of a blueprint. So the best recommendation you could make is that you should kind of like use Google and steal the most you can find. And then you get your blueprint. And for the very common problems, you always have companies like IBM or Oracle and so on who would propose something that fits most companies, and you can adopt it, and then you're basically done.
Okay. Maybe we can jump a bit back to one of the points you made a few questions before. It's on IT strategy. I mean, one of the problems I always had, the most CIOs don't really have an IT strategy, to be honest. Usually the only factor they have is cost pressure, getting cost in down, but What's an IT strategy? How do you get an IT strategy? What are the things involved here? Because that's the key driving motivation. I mean, if you don't have a strategy, where do you move to with your enterprise architecture?
Mm-hmm. First of all, very good question. And second, what you mentioned, that most companies do not have one, is also very true and very valid observation. You can go even one step before that. If you look at big corporations, you will find many of them who do not have a business strategy. Absolutely, or a value creation model or something. They just do their daily job and they do it, and that's about it. And as long as no aggressive competitor appears, they have a good profit and they have no reason to invest in strategy and all this kind of stuff. So if you need practical help on how to do it, you can look into two kinds of sources. One is by a former Gartner vice president, Mrs. Marion Broadbent. She's written a book called The New CIO Leader, and this will give you some advice on a process, how to formulate an IT strategy, first from so-called business maxims, it's kind of lead sentences for your business, and then you derive IT maxims. This is the second best thing you can do. The first best thing is to do a full-blown strategy workshop with your senior management and board members to first define a business strategy and then go on and boil this down or to refine this in the direction of an IT strategy. Explaining all this is a bit too much for this here. Or for this interview. You have, from Gartner alone, you have about 1,000 to 2,000 pages of material on how to do it. You can even refer to the classics on strategy from Clausewitz. You can read books by Gartner. You can read books by Mintzberg and whoever. There's a whole truckload of books on strategy. You need not read all. But you will find a lot of hints.
Maybe one thing here that I just want to get your opinion on this, because you said it. At least in my opinion, you need a business strategy to get an IT strategy. But is it really true? Can you have an IT strategy without a business strategy as well?
Yes, no problem. Okay. This is indeed a very common situation. Let's say you are the poor enterprise architect and you're at the department head level, and the guys sitting on top of you are the board members. And if they have some conscience for status, they would not talk to you because you're only a department head. So they would not talk to you about strategy, or you can even find company where the strategy is so secret that it's restricted only to the board. And then you have to come up with an IT strategy without having a company strategy. But if you look at this Gartner stuff, you find arrays and lots of questions and kind of like a matrices where you are able to re-engineer from what the company is actually doing an IT strategy that supports what the company is actually doing today. This is better than nothing. But it's not really good because you're doing strategy as something that is directed towards the future. And it's very tough if you don't know what they're going to come up with in 5 years to start building the applications today that support what they want to do if you don't know it, or if they won't tell you, or if out of hierarchical reasons they will not talk to you, which is indeed not so uncommon, at least in Europe. Don't know what it's like in the States, but in Europe, we have sometimes nobility, and the noble guys will not talk to the techies all the time.
I think it's not so different all over the world on this.
Maybe in Asia. Okay.
So we already mentioned a few of the problems you have to face as an enterprise architect. What are other typical stuff that gets into your work? Typical risks, problems, whatever.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them. First of all, the one we talked about is if your senior management doesn't talk to you about strategy, you really have a problem doing the right things. Yeah. The next thing is that there's often a big divide. Yeah, we mentioned this already between business and IT. Yeah? If IT guys are perceived as the stupid techies, and if the IT guys perceive the business guys as the business guys who never know what they want in future, then you have a problem in your company. Yeah. Next one we also mentioned, if top management is not interested in strategy and long-term planning, then you can also expect to have a very tough job, because you will not be very effective, as I kind of like outlined or mentioned before. Also, a very common one is that you're sitting at the wrong place in the hierarchy.
Absolutely, yeah.
As the enterprise architect. Yeah. So if you're not a direct report to the CIO, or if you're reporting to, let's say, some lower department head, then you will not be very effective right from the start. Yeah. So I have an array of, let's say, 9, 10 or so such very common pitfalls that make your life as an enterprise architect sometimes a bit difficult or sometimes even miserable. Yeah, they are indeed somehow common, but you need to deal with them, be a bit patient, and then do the right thing and keep doing it and wait until you maybe get other managers.
Okay. I've seen especially the how to manage your boss stuff, which I thought was pretty funny. Okay, maybe at least my last question, maybe. Enterprise architecture is a lot of work. How do you deal with the situation that you don't slow down everything too much, that it doesn't get too formal? I mean, at least in these times, everybody has to be agile and fast and moving as fast as you can. And if you add too much of the administration overhead, it's difficult. So what do you do there?
Yes, first of all, you should not add too much of administration overhead. If you look at enterprise models, then there's a very common pattern which was mined by a guy called Alan O'Callaghan, and it's called mile wide, inch deep. Yeah. So the basic mode of operations and modeling you should have if you're doing enterprise architecture is not to go maximum deep and become maximum detailed, but to get the overview you need with the minimum of formalism and modeling and information that you could imagine. Yeah? So this is what they call inch deep. Yeah. If you need to decide on certain matters, you would be forced to do a deep drill. Yeah, but this is kind of like you're doing a deep drill in project architecture. You're modeling some stuff. You look at more detail, and then you would do the detail you need for this decision, and then you let it go, and you will not do this on your whole portfolio. If you say that this is too much bureaucracy at all, and if you say that it's not even good to know all your 4,000 applications and have an application handbook that lists them, then I have a nice analogy here for all the guys about kind of like development of safety and security technologies. If you look at cars, let's say 40 years ago, then safety belts and let's say airbags were absolutely unknown because they were not invented. Later on, airbags were invented for Mercedes S-Class, which is their top-notch car, about, I don't know, let's say 25, 30 years ago or so. Today, you would have airbags even in a VW Polo, which is one of the smallest cars from Volkswagen Group, So you will see that all those security technologies will get more and more affordable, because the more experience you get and the more you produce, the cheaper it gets, because it gets standard procedures. And it's kind of like dripping down from the very expensive cars to the small cars, and this is it's comparable to like those technologies and techniques are dripping down from the very large Fortune 100 companies to the smaller ones. You can observe the same with, let's say, marketing or controlling and all these practices that were not in place 50 years ago, that were experimented with 50 years ago in very large companies. And today, everybody has it, Today, everybody, even in a 10-people company, knows what marketing is, Ask somebody 25 years ago, and he would say, marketing, what? Do we need it? So enterprise architecture is pretty much comparable to that. It's a management technique, which is currently dripping down from very large corporations to the smaller ones, and which is developing as an art and as a practice, and which is also some kind of a safety technology, which ensures you against let's say any bad evolvements in business.
Yeah, and keeping actually the portfolio up to date and stuff like that. I mean, it costs a lot if you haven't done it.
Yeah.
And even the regulation stuff, at least, pushes you a bit in this direction, I would say.
Yes, if you look at the stuff like, let's say, SOX, which I hope we will not see in 10 years from now any longer. But if you look at all these measures, then, for example, if you want to be SOX compliant, which you need to be if you're a publicly traded company in the US, then you need to be COBIT compliant, because this is what IT auditors mostly apply if they want to check IT for SOX compliance. And if you want to be COBIT compliant, you will find a lot of control questions that point directly towards enterprise architecture. And for example, you also have laws in the US that for certain government agencies and fields in government, you also need enterprise architecture. So it's even illegal to work without one. It's kind of like, again, the safety belt thing. 50 years ago, nobody had such a thing. Today, it's illegal to ride without one. So again, this comparison with the security or safety technology, people get more and more risk averse and invest more and more in insurance. And enterprise architecture, at least some aspects, is also a kind of insurance. Against bad developments in business and in the application portfolio.
Absolutely agreed. So that's were at least my questions. Do you want anything else to add here?
No, thanks. my cold, I'm taking my cold right now. I'm pretty done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would urge everybody who's interested in the topic and can read German books to read Wolfgang's book. It's really good. It's very practical, and not there are books out there, but most of them are very theoretic and not really practice relevant. So get it. And thank you, Wolfgang, again. And hear you next time.
Okay. Thank you, Alex.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Software Engineering Radio. If you want to get more information about Software Engineering Radio, or if you want to give us feedback, please go to our website at se-radio.net. You can also contact the team at team@se-radio.net, although we prefer entries in our comments system on the website so other people can see what you think. Software Engineering Radio wants to thank Henning Pauli for the intro and outro music, as well as Libsyn for providing the bandwidth. This episode of SE Radio, as well as all other episodes, is licensed under Creative Commons license. See the Software Engineering Radio website for details.